December 8, 2023. The courtroom was packed as Judge Kwame Rowe prepared to deliver a sentence that would shock the nation. 16-year-old Ethan Crumbley stood before him already knowing his fate. Life in prison without the possibility of parole. No second chances. No hope of freedom. Just concrete walls and steel bars until the day he dies. But here is what most people do not understand about this sentence. Death would be quick and final. What Crumbley faces is something far more devastating. Decades of existence in conditions so harsh that the judge himself questioned whether this teenager could ever be rehabilitated. And what makes this case even more shocking is that it is back in the headlines right now in December 2025 with new developments that prove just how brutal this reality has become. Stay with me because by the end of this video you will see exactly why many believe that what Ethan Crumbley is experiencing behind bars represents a unique form of punishment. And I want you to comment below whether you agree or not after you hear what I am about to reveal. Judge Kwame Rowe did not hold back during the sentencing hearing. He made it absolutely clear that Crumbley's crime was beyond comprehension. On November 30th, 2021, 15-year-old Ethan Crumbley walked out of a bathroom at Oxford High School in Michigan with his father's 9mm Sig Sauer handgun. What happened next was a moment of extreme fear and chaos. He fired 30 rounds in the school hallways, emptying two 15-round magazines as he moved through the hallways and fired at multiple locations. He caused the deaths of 4 students, 14-year-old Hannah Street Juliana, 16-year-old Tate Meyer, 17-year-old Madison Baldwin, and 17-year-old Justin Schilling. 7 other people, including a teacher, were injured. The timeline leading up to the shooting reveals a tragedy that might have been prevented. Just hours before the attack, Crumbley and his parents had been called to an emergency meeting with school counselors. Teachers had found him browsing for ammunition at school and discovered drawings of shootings with notes that said blood everywhere and thoughts won't stop to help me. The school wanted his parents to take him home. They refused and sent him back to class. Less than 3 hours later, he opened fire. Judge Rowe highlighted evidence that sent chills through the courtroom. Crumbley had said he felt something between good and pleasurable when he harmed an animal. The judge questioned whether this teenager could ever be rehabilitated, stating that the evidence does not demonstrate to this court that he wants to change. The defendant continues to be obsessed with violence and could not stop his violence in jail. Those last words are particularly significant. Even behind bars, Crumbley was displaying violent behavior and getting into fights. This was not someone who made a terrible mistake in a moment of crisis. This was someone who seemed fundamentally incapable of controlling his violent impulses. When you are sentenced to life in prison as a teenager, you are not just losing your freedom. You are losing every single milestone that defines a normal life. No prom, no graduation, no first job or apartment, no falling in love, no marriage or children. Just an endless succession of identical days stretching forward until death finally comes decades later. In April 2024, shortly after Crumbley turned 18 years old, everything changed. He was transferred from Oaks Correctional Facility, where he had been housed in a special unit for juvenile offenders. The Michigan Department of Corrections moved him to Oaks Correctional Facility in Manistee, an adult maximum security prison. The prison spokesperson explained that he reached the age of 18, so he was no longer eligible to reside in that specialized unit. He was moved to a protective custody unit at the Oaks facility because of his notoriety. Let that detail sink in for a moment. Crumbley is so notorious that even in a prison full of murderers and violent criminals, he needs special protection. The other inmates know who he is and what he did, and in prison culture that makes him a target. Oaks Correctional Facility opened in 1992 and houses both Level 2 and Level 4 offenders. Crumbley is classified as Level 4, which is high security. The facility has 7 main buildings, including segregation and protective housing units. Reports indicate that Crumbley has been involved in at least 2 altercations with fellow inmates, confirming the concerns Judge Rowe expressed about his continued violent behavior. Life inside Oaks Correctional follows a rigid and dehumanizing routine. Every morning at 5:30 a.m., the lights come on without warning. There is no sleeping in, no gradual awakening. Breakfast arrives through a slot in the door at 6 a.m., consisting of powdered eggs, watery oatmeal, and lukewarm coffee. Communication with the outside world is severely restricted. Phone calls are monitored and limited, letters are read before delivery, and there is no privacy whatsoever. Visiting restrictions add another layer of isolation, with all visitors going through an extensive approval process and meeting only in monitored rooms where every interaction is watched. What makes Crumbley's situation uniquely devastating is the fate of his entire family. His parents Jennifer and James Crumbley made history by becoming the first parents in United States history to be held criminally responsible for a school shooting committed by their child. Both were convicted of involuntary manslaughter in separate trials. On April 9, 2024, they were each sentenced to 10 to 15 years in prison. Consider the psychological impact of this reality. Crumbley is serving life without parole. His mother Jennifer is at Women's Huron Valley Correctional Facility in Ypsilanti. His father James is at Bellamy Creek Correctional Facility in Ionia. The entire family is imprisoned, but while his parents might be released in 10 to 15 years, Crumbley will die behind bars. Prosecutors presented evidence during the trials showing that Crumbley had begged his parents for help with his mental health. He told them he was hearing voices and seeing things that were not there. According to testimony, his mother laughed at him before dismissing his concerns. His father told him to suck it up. They bought him a gun instead of getting him the help he desperately needed. The appeals process has added its own layer of psychological turmoil to Crumbley's situation. In June 2024, his new attorneys filed a motion asking to withdraw his guilty plea and request a new sentencing. They argued that his previous lawyers provided ineffective assistance and claimed his mother used alcohol during pregnancy, which could have caused fetal alcohol spectrum disorder, affecting his cognitive abilities and understanding of the plea consequences. On December 19, 2024, Judge Rowe rejected both requests, stating that the plea was knowingly, voluntarily, and accurately given, and there was no defect in the plea-taking process. Then, on May 6, 2025, the Michigan Court of Appeals dismissed Crumbley's appeal, finding no merit to his claims. For months, Crumbley and his legal team had worked on this appeal, researching and preparing arguments while holding on to hope that something could change. When that door slammed shut, it was another reminder that this sentence is permanent. The legal fight has continued, though. In July 2025, Crumbley's attorneys from the State Appellate Defender Office asked the Michigan Supreme Court to order a new hearing. They argue that the circuit court overlooked errors in his legal proceedings and that the court found nothing could or would make a difference in the sentence imposed, which they describe as death in prison for someone 15 years old at the time of their offense. Attorney Jacqueline Ouvry made it clear this is not about relitigating the convictions but about requiring the court to consider mitigating factors that should have been part of the sentencing decision. However, Oakland County Prosecutor Karen McDonald's office responded firmly, noting that the facts are undisputed and that on November 30, 2021, the shooter murdered 4 students, wounded 7 others, and terrorized an entire community. This ongoing legal battle creates a particularly difficult psychological burden. Crumbley must live with the knowledge that there are people fighting for him and legal arguments being made about his age and mental health, while simultaneously watching every appeal get denied and every door closed. This cycle of hope and disappointment may be more psychologically damaging than having no hope at all. The loss of identity that occurs when imprisoned as a teenager is profound and often overlooked. While Crumbley's former classmates were graduating high school, he was learning prison routines. While they were going to prom and taking senior pictures, he was navigating prison politics. While they were starting college or careers or falling in love, he was watching his back for violent inmates. Mental health experts who study long-term incarceration have identified particular risks for young offenders. The human brain continues developing until the mid-20s, and when you disrupt normal development during these crucial years with prolonged isolation and institutional living, you can cause permanent psychological damage including depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and even psychosis. Crumbley's personality is being shaped not by normal life experiences but by the prison environment itself. He is becoming institutionalized, and by the time he reaches middle age, he will have spent more of his life in prison than in freedom. A fellow inmate at Thumb Correctional Facility, where Crumbley was initially housed, wrote about what it was like to see him in prison. The entire prison shut down for the afternoon when Ethan arrived due to his notoriety. One gang member talked about wanting to attack Crumbley not because of his crimes but because he could call home to his mother and tell her he just attacked the kid on the news. Many juvenile lifers now in their 30s, 40s, and 50s talked about how if anyone deserved a life sentence as a juvenile, it would be a school shooter. In the prison hierarchy, school shooters occupy the lowest position. Interestingly, that same inmate mentioned that staff who worked directly with Crumbley report that he has expressed regret and said he wishes he would have had the opportunity to get his mind right before his crime and incarceration. He begged his parents for help when he was still a free high schooler who had committed no crime. They laughed at him, dismissed him, and did nothing. Now he sits in a cell for the rest of his life. The recreation hour represents one of the cruelest aspects of prison life. For 60 minutes, Crumbley is allowed into a concrete yard surrounded by razor wire and guard towers. The sky above might be blue, but it is framed by barriers designed to remind him that even this small taste of open space is controlled and temporary. Other young people his age are driving cars, going to beaches, traveling, and exploring the world. Crumbley walks in circles in a concrete box, counting down the minutes until he returns to his cell. To truly understand the magnitude of this sentence, consider the timeline. Crumbley is currently 18 years old. He will be 28 in 10 years, 38 in 20 years, 48 in 30 years, and 58 in 40 years, assuming he lives that long. Life in prison often means facing significant health and safety risks. In 40 years, most people build entire careers, raise families, travel the world, and create countless memories. All of that is permanently unavailable to Crumbley. Every milestone, every experience, every moment of genuine happiness is gone. This brings us to the central question of this video. Is this really better than the death penalty? Many people argue that life imprisonment is preferable because death is too easy, that criminals should suffer for what they did, and that execution is the easy way out. But consider what we have just examined. What is truly worse, a relatively quick execution after years of legal appeals, or 50 to 60 years of daily existence in these conditions? Waking up every morning knowing you will die in a cell, watching yourself age behind bars, seeing the entire world move forward without you through tiny glimpses, never experiencing genuine freedom, privacy, or meaningful choices again. Some people call the death penalty cruel and unusual punishment. But what about taking a 15-year-old and ensuring he spends every single day for the rest of his natural life in a concrete box surrounded by violent criminals? Is that not also cruel and unusual? To be absolutely clear, I am not suggesting Crumbley deserves sympathy for what he did. He killed 4 innocent teenagers in cold blood. He destroyed families and traumatized an entire community. Hannah St. Juliana, Tate Meyer, Madison Baldwin, and Justin Schilling will never get to experience any of the things that make life worth living. Their families will never see them graduate, get married, or have children. That pain is permanent and real, and nothing can diminish the tragedy of what was taken from them. However, I am asking you to consider what justice really means in this context. Is this living death that Crumbley faces actually justice? Or is it something else? Is it revenge? Is it society's need to ensure maximum suffering? These are uncomfortable questions without easy answers. Here is what we know for certain as of December 2025. Ethan Crumbley is currently housed at Oaks Correctional Facility in Manistee, Michigan, serving life without parole. His appeals have been denied at multiple levels. His parents are also in prison. His transfer to adult maximum security at age 18 demonstrates that his time behind bars is only becoming more difficult as the years progress. He has no possibility of parole, no chance of freedom, no hope of ever leaving. This is his life now, and all his life will ever be until he dies. So I want you to think about this and comment below. After hearing everything about Ethan Crumbley's daily existence in prison, do you still believe life imprisonment is better than the death penalty? Is what he is experiencing really more humane than execution? Or have we simply found a way to extend punishment across decades while calling it justice? The answer might not be as simple as you thought when you started watching this video. When you really examine what life without parole means for a teenager, when you see how it grinds away hope and humanity day after day, you start to wonder if we have created something that goes beyond traditional concepts of punishment. That is the reality of Ethan Crumbley's life behind bars, And that is the question I want you to answer in the comments. After seeing all of this, which punishment do you think is truly worse?